Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third session of Wales Regional Conference 2021. I'm here with former Wales international footballer Nathan Blake, who's kindly joined us to talk about his career and any advice he might have. So, welcome, Nathan.
Hello, Ben. Hello, everybody.
So Nathan was a professional footballer for a number of clubs, as well as playing for Wales, as I've said, and is now sort of a broadcaster and columnist amongst a whole load of other things. And so it's kindly agreed to come along and have a chat to everyone. So do you want to start off by telling everyone a bit about sort of what you're up to now?
At this moment in time, yeah, sure. Well, I still sit on the board of a charity called Counting the Community. I chaired the board there for about 4 years before passing it on. We've been going about 6 years. We do a lot of charitable work in schools and around our local area, which is Newport, Monmouthshire, and the surrounding valleys. I also sit on the board at It's My Shout, which is a theatre dramatics company, which is linked to like BBC, ITV and stuff like that for kids mainly from, a lot from disadvantaged backgrounds and where we're getting opportunities. And I also sit on the Crime Stoppers board at the moment, trying to help figure out certain issues like knife crime and things like that. From a broadcast perspective, I do a lot of commentary for BBC 5 Live from time to time. I've stopped now doing I used to do a column in the local Echo, which is South Wales Echo, which is a local paper in Cardiff. Falls under the Media Wales banner. So I used to write a column for them and do some other bits and bobs like podcasting and things like that. So currently at the moment, I'm doing my own podcast. It's called A Bit of Swaz. It's a Cardiff City podcast. And I've linked up with Jason Mohammed to do some other bits and bobs. And again, looking to get people from disadvantaged backgrounds or from minority ethnic backgrounds, trying to get them opportunities to get into media, whatever that may be. So amongst that, we've got 3 children who are all grown up. The youngest is 18, oldest 24 coming up. And yeah, family and friends and all the rest of it. So quite a busy person.
Sounds like you do a real range of stuff, not just sort of media stuff, but just so much.
Yeah, I enjoy it. What I like is being my own boss and not having to answer to anybody. I mean, if I had to, then so be it. But coming out of football, done a bit of building houses, apartments for a few years. Done okay with that, and then the media sort of I was asked to do it one day by somebody at the BBC. I'd done it, they liked it, and it's just grown from there. And other things have come off the back of it, like I've done a couple of voiceover documentaries. I've also fronted a couple of documentaries for BBC. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff coming off the back of it.
I imagine every day is pretty different.
Yeah, every day is a different day. Like day like today has been pretty easy going, actually. Just sorting out things like websites and things like that for a new production company I'm involved with. And then talking to you fantastic people. So it's quite an easy day today.
Well, I'm glad we could be part of it. You obviously during your career, you played for quite a number of clubs. What was the experience of that like? Because obviously there were clubs at loads of different levels. You started with Cardiff and played for Wolves and clubs like that. What was it like playing for so many different clubs in so many different sort of situations?
Yeah, it was good. It was really enjoyable. I mean, I left school. I'd done school work experience in football. My headmaster was involved with Newport County at the time. So I went there, done my work experience, and then fortunately was able to get an opportunity to play for Chelsea. So I went up and done an apprenticeship at Chelsea, came back Didn't love London too much, I'll be honest with you. Didn't see eye to eye with it being a taffy from the countryside. So it was all a bit quick for me. Got back, signed up for Cardiff, and then signed professional. Stayed at Cardiff for about 4 years, then moved to Sheffield. And that was a great experience, I'll be honest with you. Living away from home or moving away from home never fazed me, but it is a very difficult situation because one, you've got to find yourself somewhere to live. The only thing that's taken away is affordability because you're on decent wages. So, but you've got to find a place to live. Then, you know, there's the loneliness aspect. You spend a lot of time on your own, making new friends at new club, being a long way from home. But, you know, you interact with people, you find out who your friends are soon enough, and you move in certain circles, and it's no different to, you're only, like I say to my kids, you're only the new kid for a week or two, aren't you? So, and then you just become part of the fixtures and fittings.
Yeah.
But going from Sheffield then across the Pennines over to Bolton, had great times there. It's probably all round probably my favourite place, club and everything. And then Blackburn, then Wolves, and then Leicester and Leeds, and finished with I finished with playing for Leeds. I tore my hamstring about 9.5 inches, so it was kind of like the end for me. So,
I suppose it was a bit of a different age in a way, you know, sort of sports science and that hadn't quite caught up to where it is now 15 years ago. So injuries like that were a lot worse for players.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we did have sports science. It did start to be introduced around probably about 97, 98. People started speaking about it. But football's very, you know, they know what they know and they do it their way sort of thing. So it took probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 years to really get engaged. And that was about the time I was finishing. So, yeah, I think if times were different, I don't think I would have even been playing because they've now got things that tell you when your muscles are stressed to certain situations, so you're able to rest or whatever. But I was fortunate because I was 33, 34 at the time, so it wasn't too bad.
Yeah. But obviously, yeah, you played quite a lot of games and scored an absolute stack of goals as well.
Yeah, I've done all right, up to that point.
Throughout your career, you won a number of promotions with, I think, 3 different clubs you got promoted with.
4, I think.
Oh, 4.
Cardiff, Bolton, Blackburn, and Wolves. 4.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My research has failed me.
Yeah, sack the researcher.
Which of those do you think was the most sort of important to you personally in terms of, you know, the experience and everything else?
I think the first is always the most important. I think Cardiff, you know, several reasons really. One, I'm a born bred Welshman. I'm born in Cardiff, brought up in Newport, but all my mum's family are all from Cardiff, cousins, aunties, uncles, what have you. But I think that was the most important because, you know, I was still an apprentice when I made my debut and was playing in the first team. And I think I played something like the last 12 games of the season and we got relegated, which was an experience in itself. And then about 3 or 4 years later, you obviously mature, grow up, and we were able to get promoted from that division. So it was kind of like the start of the rebirth of Cardiff City and where they are now. Back in 93, I think it was, 92, 93, something like that. So I say like lessons I learned from senior players and my manager, Eddie May at the time, who was a great guy. He's passed away now, but he's a really good guy. You know, I learned a lot about, you know, football, but you have to understand football and professionalism was different then. Professionalism, for instance, was you travel to Doncaster, play a game, be on the coach after the game, and then they would bring like 60 cans of lager onto the coach for everyone to drink on the way home. You know, that just would never happen today. So, you know, you learn these lessons, and then it's by the time you've done that at 18 and that's what you're used to, because I wasn't really a drinker, but you have one or two. And you've done that up until the age, it was the same at Sheffield, same at Bolton, and then it kind of started phasing out back end of my days at Bolton, probably 27, 28. But by this time, you know, you're kind of stuck in your ways. You don't like change, you know, but, you know, that's where I think the angst comes in, because you've got a problem with science, then management and players. Once the management are convinced, they're trying to convince the players, and it's difficult. So it takes time for people to readjust. But I would say Cardiff was my most important. Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously all the sort of skills and experience you gave, that probably helped you settling at the other clubs and help them to win promotion as well.
Yeah, and I think what you've got to. I've never been one that's ever been fearful of situations or people or things like that. I've never. No, it wasn't like I thought, oh no, I've got to go and play away from home. It was more the thought was, I can't wait to get away and play somewhere new. All right. So, and I suppose I was brought up being taught that the world's as big or as small as you want it to be. All right.
Yeah.
I've got family in America, family in Jamaica, family in Antigua. So if you want to see it as a big, massive place, you can do. Or you could say, by the time I travel to London and back, I could be in New York. So it's how you want to perceive it.
Yeah. What was it? So obviously, I'd say Cardiff is sort of like your hometown club, really. You know, into having been born there. What was it?
Absolutely.
What was it like? Because I think that's where you played the most league games. What was it like playing so much for the club just
down the
10
road,
miles down from where you grew up?
Yeah, it was special because my grandmother was born in Wales, in Cardiff, in 1921, and then she subsequently had 7 children, all born in Cardiff. My uncle Clive was Clive Sullivan, the rugby league player. He won the World Cup with Great Britain, captained them. He moved north to Hull. My other uncle, who's a professor, moved to London to a university there to lecture. And my mum, my aunts, and my one uncle all stayed in Cardiff. So it was pretty special because obviously my cousins and everything, like I think my grandmother was one of 9 children and my mother's one of 7. So you can imagine the amount of family, cousins, friends, what have you, we were all in and around Cardiff. It was a very proud moment as well for a lot of people. My grandmother with my aunties, my aunties and uncles, it was a big bragging tool for them.
Yeah. And then obviously you went on to play quite a number of games for your country as well. How did that make you feel, to be able to pull on the shirt and represent your country so many times?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I think my debut was against Norway. I think John Toshak gave me my debut and then resigned straight after. So I must have had a good game. He's a good guy. I get on really well with John Toshak and his son Cameron. But it was a great experience to pull on the shirt. Especially my family, because my uncle was a rugby league legend, but wasn't able to play for Wales because of certain discriminatory rules and regulations that were being carried out. So it was huge. But then I went through a period where I retired for about 2 years because I had a situation with the manager and a racial incident, and what have you. But after about 2 years, because I knew the FA were never going to apologise or were ever really on my side, it was a case of swallow your pride and or you're going to miss out on, playing for your country another, maybe I'd already missed probably 15, 20 games. So it was a case of, just go back, but just don't talk to the management and just if you're selected, just play the game.
Yeah.
But proud, very proud.
And so last question about your career before we move on to all the stuff you've been up to since. What would you say was the sort of best or proudest moment of your playing career?
Ooh, the first promotion with Cardiff was probably the best and the most special. Debut for Cardiff against Bristol Rovers, which is a local derby. That was special. Debut for Wales against Norway. That was special. Scoring my first goal for Wales. That was special. Tell them a striker, can you? Goals, it's all about glory,
Exactly.
isn't it? And then I think my time at Bolton and my time at Wolves combined, those two clubs were absolutely fantastic. And what made it wasn't the football. It was the dressing room and the camaraderie with the lads. At Wolves, we had a great set of lads. At Bolton, we had a great set of lads. Blackburn, there was a lot of stuff going on there with players. When I joined, they were in a relegation battle, and there were certain players who thought that they were they'd won the Premier League, and there was still a lot of leftover baggage from that. Players thinking that they were like managers, basically, should be able to select the team and say who's doing what, and it was just a mess, to be honest with you. But the two stick out more than any. Bolton, Wolves, but the main one I would say is Cardiff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And yeah, I had a fantastic playing career. But then obviously, once you'd finished playing, you wanted to, you sort of left football, I think you said, and went to.
Yeah.
But then you asked to do some media work. What sort of, when you got that offer to, cover that bit of media work, what made you think, oh yeah, this is really something that, I'd be quite good at and I want to get involved in?
Well, I didn't really think that, to be honest with you, Ben. I just thought to myself, I'm that type of person. So if you say to me, Nate, come and do something like this, if it's helping somebody, I'll do it. If you said to me, Nate, fancy doing a skydive, I'd say, nah, not really my thing. I'm not a risk taker. I'm not an adrenaline junkie. I've got as long as I can keep my feet on the floor, but I like to be outside of my comfort zone from time to time. So keeps me young.
Yeah. And you obviously done quite a mix of stuff within the media as well. So you've done your column as well as broadcast. How do you feel like the sort of mix of different stuff you've done has helped you understand the game perhaps a bit better?
Yeah, it's helped me understand a lot, because what I've been able to do is just, excuse me, it's just my computer. Is just be able to sit back a lot and watch and observe people, whether it's cameramen, photography, whether it's people who are acting, production, direction, whatever. So, and it came about really getting involved in the media, just through the column, writing the column in the South Wales Echo. And then started to do a podcast for them. And then at the same time, BBC Wales asked me if I would do co-commentary for a game. And then, like I said, I've had people done, like, it's called a documentary called Newport's Rocky about David Pearce, local boxer. So I've done some voiceover work on that. Done BBC Sports Personality of the Year. Done a short film for that. Done a documentary on Welsh Muslims, done a documentary on black miners, done some acting, won a supporting actor award at the It's My Shout Awards, because the owner of the company asked me to do a little cameo in a film for one of the films. So I just, like I say, Ben, I'm not someone who said, I won't do anything. I do look and give it some thought, and I think, yeah, if it's feasible and logical, and I think, yeah, I'll give it a go.
Yeah. Well, I imagine that attitude has got you into some really sort of into doing some stuff that you perhaps when you finish your career never sort of expected.
Absolutely. Well, I never expected to be doing documentaries. And there's a company in London who had done the last documentary I did on black miners, and they kind of rolled the dice asking me to do it. And now they're asking me that now we're, looking to collaborate on other stuff. So they're obviously happy with the work I've done, and other stuff has come off the back of it. But if you had said to me 2 or 3 years ago, would I think that's possible? I would have said, well, it's possible, but it's highly unlikely.
Yeah. How have you found sort of being on the other side? So going from, your playing career and play every week to being, in the past, the one who was sitting on the gantry actually commentating on the game. How did you find that change?
It was. Well, I think what I learned quickly was a lot of former players are highly critical without putting themselves in the position. Do you understand what I mean? I would say, like, we were all players, so we should understand better than the everyday person why that particular player might be playing so well or so poorly, or so, we've got a better insight to it. So I quickly learned, like, not to, speak the truth, speak your opinion, what you see, because what often happens if you misread the game, then when the fans listen to the radio and then watch the TV, or sometimes they're watching the TV and listening to the radio, if you're speaking what they deem as nonsense, they'll all write into the BBC or they'll complain, and I would have probably lasted about 2 or 3 games. So you've got a great understanding of the game because you've played it, but then being able to translate that to the audience is the most important. And you want to be given detail as well as the odd humorous, one-liner, and giving some in-depth detail that people who support the game but don't necessarily play the game might miss a certain situation that I like to try and highlight.
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of thing that's really important, especially on radio as well, because you're the one trying to put exactly what's going on across, because people obviously can't see what's on the pitch like they can on TV. I think that's really important on radio.
Well, you're painting a picture, do you understand what I mean? You're painting a picture, so it's no good just saying he shot, player run and shot. You want to be saying who the player is, what wing is he on the left side or the right side, in relation to the touchline or the 18-yard box. He cut inside and he's about 22 yards out, just outside the near post, and he's put in the top corner, far left of the keeper. So you kind of, with that, you could picture exactly where he is on the pitch and how the goal went in. And then when you see it, you go, wow.
Yeah. Is it a challenge almost having to talk like non-stop for 90 minutes? Because you can never really stop on radio, because obviously it's incredibly noticeable if you stop talking for 10 seconds. Is that something that's quite difficult to sort of manage, that idea that you always have to be talking and saying something?
No, I think what is important as well is to be able to create partnerships with your co-commentary. So there's usually 2 of you, sometimes it's 4 of you. That doesn't always work, it's difficult. Even 3 sometimes is difficult, but when it's 2 of you, I think it's important to build that relationship and that understanding. And one of the things that I learned very quickly was, when you're in mid-flow, if you're given your something that's just happened at one end of the goal, and you're explaining it, and they quickly counter-attack the other side of the goal, the main commentator will cut across you straight away, right? But it's no good getting angry or disappointed about it. You let him finish because it's going to be a goal attempt or whatever, and then you finish making your point quickly, and then you move on. So they're things that you just learn, no different to being on a football pitch and learning how to use your body against a defender, or things like that. So you pick things up as you go along. If you got your eyes open and your ears peeled, you pick them up. And if you pick them up, good habits, then you should be able to stay in the game for quite some time.
Yeah. And so your column, how long were you sort of writing that for?
About 7 years. I think it was 8 years combined. The deal went, you do a year and then they get another player. But I'd done a year, come away, and then they asked me to come back, and then they asked me to stay for about 6 or 7 years. But it's all gone to pear-shaped because of they were all on furloughed and all sorts at Media Wales. So, but I've just cracked on and dealt with a couple of people and done my own thing now.
Yeah. How did you find writing the column? Was it a weekly thing or monthly?
Yeah. It was weekly, but sometimes if we have like 2 games a week, I would write, and Stevie Tucker, who I used to attend a lot of games with, he's passed away now, God rest him. But we would write the column together. So because I quickly learned that I let him write my column once, it created a bit of a storm, and it was because he had said things that he had believed, and not necessarily things that I believe. So it created a bit of a storm.
Yeah.
And then, I just told him, like, whatever you write, put your name to it. Be brave enough to put your name to it. Because he was trying to sit behind me. But what happened when it went public, a lot of people were like, well, I don't seem like something that Nathan would say. So he got caught with his fingers in the cookie jar, let's say.
I think, that's an opportunity that a lot of former players won't get, really, writing a column. Did you was it been a particular highlight of the stuff you've done since you retired?
No, I just look at it as just another thing I've done, Ben. Do you know what I mean? It's just I don't really, I suppose I quite, especially with football and sport, what football taught me is being able to keep a kind of a flat line. So, don't get too excited, don't get too down, just try and keep a happy medium. And, I've never really looked back at it. That's something I don't do. I tend to, I don't review myself and my work. I just plow myself into what I'm doing. And don't get me wrong, if I've set something up and there's a mistake that needs to be corrected, I'll go back and sort it. But I don't tend to look back over the last 10 years and say, oh, look, I've achieved there or what I've done there. I keep going forward. When I'm in the coffin, I look back over everything I've done.
I think that's a good attitude. How has sort of the last year, obviously with the pandemic, affected all the things you've been doing? How has that sort of changed your working practices or made some things more difficult?
Yeah, it's been really difficult, I have to say. I haven't found it difficult because I'm quite a laid-back character. We live in a nice big house in the countryside. We've got beautiful walks and mountains around, so we're fortunate. But it's affected in the sense, like the Media Wales stuff, the column and the podcast went. So then I just started to get creative. I know people with production companies and things like that. Jason Mohammed, BBC presenter, approached me about starting our own production company. So we've done that. Started podcasting on our own, done that. One or two other bits and bobs people have approached me about. So there's things going on. I'm also, through journalism, sports journalism, I come up with this idea of an app for the sports journalists. So we're just at about stage 2, just short of MVP. We reckon we should have an MVP hopefully by about April, May. So I've been working and developing that as well. So in lockdown, I've just tried to get creative or just stay creative. If something goes away and it frees up some time, I'll look to do something else. Simple as that.
That's good. Yeah. Well, because obviously, the media has been really disrupted by sort of the last 12 months. But it seems like you've made the best of it in a way.
Yeah, well, we're not allowed to. There's been times where when we came out of the first lockdown, we were then able to travel and watch Cardiff and the playoff games. And then obviously we went into another lockdown when the new season started. So we weren't allowed to travel. Then that got lifted and we were allowed to travel to games, but sitting like socially distanced apart and what have you. Then Wales had its own lockdown again, so we weren't able to go to any away games. So we're going into the studio to do. We watch the TV and do the radio, which is a bit crazy, weird, but we get away with it. Yeah, we just people are just you just bend rather than break. You just mold yourself into something else and try and make the best of a bad situation.
Yeah. And obviously, as you said, you do just about more than anyone I've ever heard of outside of the media as well. So you do quite a bit of charity stuff, like you were, as you said, the chair of County of the Community, which is not Newport County's sort of community association for a few years. How did that come about? So how did you get that opportunity?
So what happened was, I know former directors at the club and owner, Howard Greenhalgh. I know Howard, he lives not far from me, from my days in the building game. And he asked me if I would get involved with the club and help him sort of, they were having problems and they were trying to sell the club as well. So I got involved, helped a bit on board level, decision making, what have you. But yet they still made some, like, what I thought was crazy decisions. And then realized there was a charity. Never realized there was a charity there. And one of my best mates, Norman Parcell, he's a former player at the club. He works like a lot of community stuff. He's been doing a lot of community stuff for the last 15, 20 years. And he's always said they should have a charitable trust at the club. So when the takeover eventually happened, I obviously left. And Norman asked if I would help him set the charity up. So there was two of us. I think we had about 10 grand's debt already, which was from the club. We had a bag of footballs and two bags of bibs. That's what we started with. Yeah, we started there, and that was 2015. And today, I think we'll pull in around about 350K. We're looking for our own facility. Speaking to 2 different housing associations about some land and the possibilities there. We run a college program for kids who come out of school or don't make it in the professional game. We do walking football. We've got a mental health program. We've got a disabilities program. We go into schools and use some of our like training methods as to help with like numeracy skills and stuff like that. So we've got 15, I think, employees, and three part-time employees. So we've grown, massively in a short period of time. And I can't take the credit. I have to say it's myself and Norman Passau that started. But it gives me a lot of pleasure, seeing people happy. And one of the lads, Jake, a few years back, his mum sent me a text, beautiful text. He had learning difficulties, Jake did. He was kind of not learning, he was kind of dyslexic and 1 or 2 other difficulties. And he went on our college program, got an MBQ, went on to further education, and ended up at the university and got a degree. And then his mum sent me a picture of him in his cap and gown and a lovely text saying she never ever thought that his boy would achieve it, and it's thanks to myself and Norman helping him to achieve these things. So yeah, that's one person. Like I said, I can tell you that story because it makes me feel good, and even better knowing that Jake is in a much better position, and he's much more confident as a person. I've met him plenty of times since, and he's a shadow of his former self. So that gives me a lot of pleasure, Ben, helping people out.
That's good. And obviously, that's only one example, but I bet there's loads. Who've
yeah. At the moment, well, Crime Stoppers, like I say, I sit on that board. I've never had the greatest relationship with the police growing up, but a friend of mine who's the former Wales Police and Crime Commissioner asked me to go and join the board, so I did. And yeah, it's interesting from the other side. It's it's knife crime I'll use as a for instance. Trying to make people understand the implications of something like a similar stop and search, and how that affects different people, and especially if you're black and you're it's 9 or 10 times more likely to be stopped and searched. Just how that makes you feel as a person, whether you're black, white, or pink with green spots.
Yeah.
You can't just say I looked at you and thought you're a suspect, so I'm gonna search you. It's like it's an invasion of every privacy and what have you. So trying to help, but the people I'm dealing with, that's very much an open and shut case, right? That's how we do it. That's how we resolve the issue. But I'm trying to tell them, well, it's not that straightforward. You have to look at it differently. And so I mean, you need to start looking at why people are carrying knives in the first place, and maybe attack areas of multiple deprivation we have in Newport, and start to look at why those places have no access for youth to go to youth clubs like I used to go to, or if you want to go on the local AstroTurf, you have to pay, and you know what I mean. It's these things, but there's always a financial implication to everything that's going on. But you're dealing with people who don't really have that means and access to easy cash, and that's why a lot of the kids do crime. So it's trying to help people understand who've never really been or brought up in that sort of environment. Trying to make them understand that environment is essential to how you see the world, really. True.
Yeah.
That's not mean to say you're not accountable for your actions, Mark. Right?
No.
Because you can't use that as an excuse forever.
Yeah.
If you're 15 and you do something stupid, fair enough. If you repeat that same crime when you're 19, 20, then you can't just say, oh, it's because I'm a product of this environment. Because accountability and self-responsibility comes in.
Yeah. Is it important to you then to be able to sort of use your experience and everything you've done in like the last sort of 15, 20 years to sort of give back and help other people who are where you were when you were sort of their age?
Yeah, absolutely. It's hugely important to me because I was like a kind of a different kind of cat, if you like, Ben. My family are very intelligent, and
yeah.
I've never been afraid to speak my mind. And I was able to hold a conversation with people a lot older than me when I was a teenager. So that is important, especially when you get up to being an adult. And you see people who might be suffering one way or another. Sometimes they don't have a voice. So being in a position where I can speak on behalf of people, because I remember being in that situation. I can remember what poverty was like. I remember living, yearly Christmas to Christmas. One would live on catalog orders. You get a bike this Christmas, you'd finish paying for it by November next year, and then December you're ordering the new present for the coming year, and she's going through that whole cycle again. So I can remember those days. I thought, honestly, being a professional footballer, the money I'd earned and the taxes I paid, gladly, right, the millions in tax, I expected. The 90s was decent. If you ask me now, I think we kind of got duped, but I was expecting the 2000s, 2010s, and now you guys, my kids, the world to be or the UK to be a really, really good place. Not so much hatred, not much divide, not so much, some of the problems that are historical problems. Women still being paid less than men. I mean, it's just, it's mind blowing, and I go beyond sympathy with that, because my mum was a single mum, 4 boys, so I was brought up by a woman. So I'm very much the women in my family are probably the strongest. So it's if it means you have to fight for women's rights, people who are gay rights, people who are black, their rights, Asian, I don't really care. If I see it as wrong, I'll stand up for it.
That's really good. Do you think that, or that sort of community, or well, sort of not community organisations, but perhaps so football clubs like County does have a sort of responsibility to try and support those in those in their community? Like I know my football team have been doing that since the 80s. County obviously do it. Do you think clubs have a responsibility to be trying to do things like that?
I think massively. I really do. I think because football is the number one game, I think there's so many other sports that can come off the back of that, right? It's as the charity, we don't just focus on football. For instance, if someone wanted to come and start a hockey team, and we would be up for it, right? It's no good. I think what's happened in the past, Ben, and this is what we're dealing with at the moment with the housing association I mentioned. We're trying to get a lot of 4G in our own pitches and what have you for the charity. For the first time, speaking to the housing association, they're asking us what we think the people in the community would like. Well, we engage with the community every day, right? Rather than what the housing associations or the builders have done in the past is you get what is a Section 106 agreement, but they have to give certain area of sport, leisure, and they would just put a park, roundabout, swings, and I'm like, well, that's so 70s, like
Yeah.
Put a hub and put some gaming in there, put a 3G football pitch that can be used 24/7, or put two there. Do you know what I mean? Put an AstroTurf that people can play hockey on and play rounders or cricket and stuff like that. But it's sort of like the tech world. The youngsters are being brought up in, and the sporting world. They're linked. So many kids spend so much time playing FIFA, right? Well, I can kick a ball on FIFA, right? But I can kick a ball professionally, but the two are linked. So I think like with the way things are now, people have got to listen a lot more to what the people on the estate are saying, because the green spaces are going, and then we find ourselves in this situation where, I remember when I was a kid, me and my best mate Kev, we used to laugh, or not laugh, we used to listen to hip hop songs and think, oh, kids, they used to be rapping about kids who were 9 years old being stick-up kids, and we were like, never imagine that. Fast forward, 25 years, and we got, as I know from Crime Stoppers, we got 10 and 11-year-olds, 9-year-olds running drugs across county lines. It's problematic out there. So I think a lot more needs to be done, and a lot more focus needs to be given to people who are living in poverty and stuff like that, because I don't actually think there's any need for it.
Yeah.
Still there?
I think one of our internets has dropped out. Yep. Are you?
Yeah, still there. Yeah.
So, yeah, one of our internets dropped out, I think.
Okay, so you missed what I said then.
No, I think we caught most of it. Yeah.
Okay, great.
This is the joy of Zoom events, isn't it?
Yes.
Just quickly going back to sort of your media work, because I'm a bit conscious of time. Mm-hmm. As someone who's sort of been on both sides as a player and as a broadcaster and columnist, what advice would you give to people who write about it, just to be sort of mindful of, I don't know how much players these days read sort of what's being written about them and that kind of stuff, but to not, so your advice really for sort of young reporters, right, not to go too over the top or be too unfair.
Do you know the biggest what I would say?
Yep.
The biggest problem I see in media at this moment in time is the willingness to want to be first, regardless of whether the story is true or false, right? The willingness, and what people, I've seen it with my own eyes, the willingness to want to report first, regardless if it's controversial or not. whether it's truthful or not, what you're putting out there. You just want to be out there first. I think that is a major problem. I would say to you, right, no problem being first if what you're reporting is correct. But don't just do it on a whim and, it's almost like fishing. You chuck it out there thinking, well, if Ben signs for Bournemouth tomorrow, I've already said it, and I can claim it was said first in the Daily Mirror or the Sun or wherever, or on this platform, and I think that's dangerous because you're not actually looking at the situation and defining what it is. You've got the situation, but you've not really looked at it. You've already got a definitive answer of what you're going to do, in the hope that what's going to follow is your ability to be able to say, we reported, or I reported, or you read it first here. I just think that's a bit crazy.
Yeah. Although I would like to add, if Bournemouth want to offer me a paid contract, I certainly won't be saying no.
I can see you now, mate.
So obviously a lot of our members are sort of on the cusp of starting their own career in the media, but a lot of them won't want to be a journalist. I'm not a journalist. So what's your sort of main advice for whatever someone wants to do once they've graduated? What's your main advice for getting ahead in their career?
I've got two kids who've just graduated, one from Bath and one from Bournemouth universities. My eldest son has got a job waiting for him in America. My daughter, her job is waiting for her in Wimbledon, but that's on hold also. And she's got a job, just got a second job actually, working for Track and Trace. And my son's got a job working in Waitrose at night shift, so it's difficult. But like I tell them, like I said earlier, the world's as big as small as you want it to be. But whatever you do, you've got to be accountable for it, right? And whatever you do, just give an honest opinion, right? And remember, always respect other people's opinion, because it's just an opinion, right? It doesn't make it right, it doesn't make it wrong. And the final thing I'd say is perception and fact. Yeah. What is a fact? How it's perceived by two different people might be totally different, right? But try and remember that behind every story you're putting out about someone, that person has a life, a husband, a wife, children, mums, dads, you know what I mean? So have a bit of humanity, and humility and humanity, and be a bit more empathetic in the way you approach. Money doesn't make. He's a rich footballer on 200 grand a week. It's that type, and I've got that in my head, and I'm a bit, already peeved at that fact.
Yeah.
Don't let that affect your judgment, sort of thing. Just and I tell my kids, don't make knee-jerk reactions. Like I learned that when you come off a football pitch and Sky put a microphone in front of your face, and they say, "Oh right, blah 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 blah," and you're so hyped up, and you start effing and jeffing, and they go, "Oh, sorry about the language," and could you watch that? And I'm like, well, you're just coming out of war, just coming out of battle, and you're asking me to tone it right down and I want to stay up here because I'm hyped. So, I would say to journalists, like, I'm a bit of understanding about the world that you're in. You were coming into this world and then saying to a player, "Oh, watch your language," because well then give him an hour to settle down and interview him an hour later. You know what I mean? Because then he's got all his whereabouts around him. He's much more in tune with where he's supposed to be.
Yeah. That was really good. Thank you so much to Nathan for coming. We're basically out of time. And that was a really interesting chat, and I learned a lot about these sort of the two different sides of the coin, as it were, with sort of media and football. This was the last announced session of Wales Regional Conference 2021. However, as I've mentioned in emails and stuff, we have confirmed a sort of surprise extra session, which is in an hour. So with that is on reporting in the Welsh language. So everyone will be emailed sort of a Zoom link to that in the next sort of 10-15 minutes. But that's going to be a really interesting session with someone who does report in the Welsh language. So that starts at 4 p.m. And we'll see everyone there. Thank you for watching, and thank you to Nathan for coming.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Ben.
Done.
Pleasure.